Hi, good afternoon. I welcome you to this approach lecture to political science and international relations. PSR option. Now, there are quite a few things that one needs to look at while deciding an option. In this session, we are going to speak about number one, what should be the factors that should decide that you should consider before deciding an option. Secondly, we'll talk about the nature of political science and international relations as an option and its characteristics. What is so special about political science and international relations? Thirdly, we'll talk about the syllabus of political science and international relations. And then we'll also try and discuss the question paper, the pattern, the breakup of marks of the mains examination. If we look at what goes into or what decides for an option, first and foremost thing is that you should be having an interest in the subject. Mind you, why it has to be interesting? You should have an interest. UPSC preparation generally takes 18 to 24 months, and preparation for optional goes around for a consolidated period of 6 to 7 months. You need to spend time in the subject even after the class is over. So if you do not have interest in the subject, it becomes very difficult for you to continue with that subject. So number one factor while deciding for an option is whether you are interested in it or not. Now, it might so happen that you are interested in more than one subject. Then what do? Even if you are interested in more than one subject, it so happens that you will definitely incline towards one. So it might so happen that when students generally begin the preparation, they begin with polity or they begin with history. And because of the presentation of the subject, they get interested in more than one subject. But there is still one subject towards which they are inclined, where their basic understanding is more, something that they take up on their own. Such a subject where you are interested and which you are inclined towards, that should be the second. The third factor is most important one, that is the understanding of the syllabus. Whatever subject that you are interested in, especially for optional, not only for general study, you need to understand the syllabus thoroughly. Now, when we say understand the syllabus, what do we mean? That you should be able to link the syllabus with previous year questions that have been asked in the mains. Syllabus of most of the optional subjects is given in quite detail. So once you spend certain amount of time with it, not only do you learn the syllabus, at the same time, when you look at previous year questions, you understand that which are the important topics. At the same time, you also need to know that what is the weightage of a particular topic in the syllabus. Now, when I say weightage, I am not merely talking from marks point of view per se. What I mean is that how much time you need to devote to that particular topic. That's what we mean when we talk about understanding of syllabus and previous year's questions analysis. Once you are through these 4 steps, the 4th step. Now, let me talk about my own option, that is political science and international relations. I generally ask students to read a basic book, that is NCERT class 11, the chapter on nationalism. Students usually begin their preparation with general studies, and that they go through the modern Indian history. And there is an event in modern Indian history, that is the event that happened in Surat, the famous Surat split in the Indian National Congress between the moderates and the extremists. I asked students to read this chapter on nationalism and try and answer a question, that what was the difference between the idea of nationalism and the modes taken in order to free India by moderates and by extremists. What's the difference? Both of them fighting for the same ideal, the ideal of. If they are able to answer or have certain amount of clarity, it goes on to say that you have the aptitude for the subject. The chapter reading that I told is of nationalism. Now, while deciding an option, it is also important that you choose, while strategizing your preparation, it becomes very important for you to understand that time is of crucial importance. Though I have said that interest and inclination are the major factors in deciding, one of the factors that also can be taken into consideration is whether that option, for that optional, there is a particular paper in general studies which forms its base. If that happens, then it makes your task easy. It gives you a base to start with. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's try and understand. That GS forms base. Suppose you talk about history as an option, then GS paper 1 forms its base. Suppose you talk about geography as an option, then again GS1 forms its spot. And suppose you talk about my option, GSIR, GS paper 2, that is Indian polity, constitution, governance and international relations, forms its base. That is, a part of it is covered in general studies. Apart from that, you also need to see that whether that option can play some amount of part in your other papers, such as the essay paper. Or does the option help you in some of the paper of GS? So it is a two-way street. GS forms the base and the option also helps you to answer questions in. Last but not the least, most important one, this being a written examination, talks about answer writing. And when we talk about answer writing, there is a factor that I have not mentioned here, but I would want to discuss, is the factor of guidance and mentoring and answer writing go hand in hand. How much of answer writing you do, if you do not have proper guidance, the quality of your answers is not going to improve. So you need to choose an optional wherein you have proper guidance and mentoring and regular answer writing practice. So these are the factors that you need to consider while choosing an option. Okay. Next, there is my subject is political science and international relations. Now this is a humanities subject and it is subjective. That means it is open to interpretation. That means it is viewed and presented from different perspectives. Humanities subject generally are subjective. That is, you will see so many schools of thought talking about the same thing in a different manner. And that's what makes humanities subject very subjective. And this is what makes them special. Because not every answer is going to be the same. Though the premise might be same, but the presentation might be different. So, political science is being a humanities subject is a subjective. Secondly, it is a conceptual subject. Now, when I say conceptual, what do I mean? That once you have understood the concept, it takes no time or almost zero time for you to revise. Because once you have understood a particular thing, it does not take, you need not revisit it again and again. And that reduces your time for revision. Mind you, we are not only here to talk about political science and international relations, but we are talking about it in the broader picture of preparing for UPSC. Hence, time is of crucial importance. And political science being a conceptual subject, takes almost no time for revision. Because once you have understood the concept, your job becomes easy. Thirdly, this subject is analytical. Now, when I say analytical, what I mean is that your approach has to be analytical. Now, what do I mean by that? That the approach has to be analytical. Let's try and understand. Say, for example, you're talking about a particular thinker. You need to have a framework for understanding that particular thing. That the ideas that the thinker gave, we can look at them as content, and to understand his ideas, you need to understand the context in which he gave. Now, when I say context, what I mean is the age, that is the time and space when the thinker existed. What was the political situation then? What was the social situation then? What was the religious situation then? What was the economic situation then? Then when we say context, what was the immediate reason because of which prompted him to give his main idea? What were his assumptions? Who were his influences? And lastly but not the least, what are his criticisms? So what a particular thinker has said, what were these assumptions while he proposed those ideas, who were his influences, for what he is criticized, who criticized him the most, and is he relevant today? can be understood when we know the context better. In these terms, in this term, what I mean is that political science requires an analytical approach. This subject most importantly requires you to ask questions. Hence, you need to approach this subject analytically. The thinkers that are mentioned in the subject in this option are logical, analytical, and critical. When you look at Western political thinkers, say starting from Socrates to Plato, Aristotle to Machiavelli to Hobbes to Locke to J.S. Mill to Marx, Gramsci, Hannah Arendt, Foucault, Fukuyama, all these thinkers, they'll be categorized. You will be able to see that how logical, how analytical, and how critical they are. Also, what is so special or what makes political science so interesting is that it requires a holistic approach. Now, when I say holistic approach, it's because this subject is quite interdisciplinary, that it draws from so many disciplines. It draws heavily from philosophy, theology, from economics, and hence when you look at this subject, you need to have a holistic approach. That is, when you are looking at a particular event or particular action of the state, you need to understand that what will be its impact. What all is it going to impact? In those terms, this subject needs a holistic approach because it is interdisciplinary. Now, because the subject is conceptual, it requires the analytical approach. It being interdisciplinary, this subject is primarily understanding. There is a very little amount of fact that you need to remember. The subject is entirely understanding. That if you understand, अगर आप समझ गए, समझले जर तुम्हाला, तर हा सब्जेक्ट हाताळणे अजिबात. The walk in the park, if you have understood the subject. And it requires a practical approach. Now, when I say practical approach, we need to keep in mind that we are not here come follows. Hence, the amount of time that is required to prepare a particular topic might vary by 10 to 15%, not more than that. Because if you are going to spend more time on a particular topic, that is, if you become a intellectual, it is not going to work. Secondly, if you take on a activist mode, it is not going to work for you. So what is going to work for you? Practicality. You need to have a pragmatic approach. That is, stick to the syllabus, stick to previous year's questions, stick to regular answer writing, and these few things are going to keep you on track. Secondly, when I say practical approach, is when you look at the amount of content that is available in terms of books, textbooks, guides, books written by various authors, huge amount of material out. In such a environment, you need to see that, ensure that you do not lose your focus. And the focus should be on revising your class notes, reading newspaper, and at max referring to a single book for a topic. And mind you, not all topics require a separate book. Now we'll see, while looking at the syllabus, there are quite a few books that are available on a single topic, but we need not refer to all of them because they are going to consume your time. There is no way you can understand a concept in a better way by reading more. Once you have understood the crux of the concept, and once you have understood the requirement of the examination, by looking at previous year's questions, that what is being asked, by being focused, that's what we mean when we say you need to have a practical approach. Next, let's look at the syllabus of Political Science and International Relations. This paper, like all of the papers for option, is for 500 marks, divided into two papers, that is paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1 is further divided into part A, political theory, and part B, Indian government and politics. Now, if you look at this part, that is political theory, this is the entirety of syllabus. It covers the crux, the subject matter of the entire subject. Political theory, part A. It has in total 10 topics, and that forms the base for everything else. Okay. Now, this part A, is understanding based. That if you understand, then there is no need for revision. And if you look at the context or the majority thought or the theory that is given, political theory, it was entirely developed in Europe. Leaving the part wherein you have Indian political thinkers, rest of it, or most of it, was developed in Europe. And in this part, what is most important is active learning. Now, when I say active learning, what do I mean? Active learning means whatever has been taught on that particular day, you need to finish reading it on that day itself. And you need to keep up with the classes. Because it being an understanding based, if you have missed out a particular chapter, it becomes difficult for you. So specifically for part A, active learning is required. That you need to spend more amount of time, you need to give more attention, you need to be more contiguous while preparing for this part. Very interesting. Second is the second part is Indian government and politics. Part A is essential for further understanding. That is, even for understanding part B, part A is important. Rest of the syllabus is almost like general studies. It is extended to bring it par with other subjects. क्योंकि भाई बाकी ऑप्शंस में इतना सब सिलेबस है तो पॉल साइंस में पॉलिटिकल थियोरी करके कैसे चलेगा? थोड़ा तो आपको एक्सटेंड करना ही पड़ेगा. That was one of the reasons why Pol Science syllabus looks so vast. It is not. Actually, the crux of it is part A. Now, regarding part B, students asked a lot of questions because it has most of the overlap with GS paper 2. There is the making of constitution, relationship between principal organs of the government, topics such as federalism, issues such as caste, religion, and ethnicity in politics, the party system in India, all these topics. So there is a considerable amount of overlap, but the approach differs in GS2 and in Part B, Paper 1, Political Science and International. For the optional paper, the view is macro, a broad perspective. However, in GS Paper 2, it is narrow, it is in much detail. Here, it moreover talks about the political fallout of it. However, that is not the case in GS Paper 2. It talks about legalese and the legal issues emanating from the provisions or the system that is being. So, this is about paper 1. Most important, if you look at the weightage, you will see that at least 45% of time will be spent on covering part A. It requires that much amount of time. Now, let's look at the topics that are there in paper 1. In paper 1, part A, the topics that we'll be covering are Western Indian political thinkers, the concept of power, political ideologies, theories of state, democracy and rights, justice and ideals of justice and equality. Maybe in part B, you look at Indian nationalism, Indian constitution, making and its salient features, principal organs of union and state government, grassroots democracy, an idea again which has been taken from part A. Then you have statutory institutions and commissions. You have the feature of federalism. Then a very lucid discussion on planning and economic development. The issues of caste, religion, and ethnicity in Indian politics, party systems, and social movements. This goes about. This is about the syllabus of paper 1, part A, and part B. Okay. If you look at political science, international relations, paper 2, the paper is named as Comparative Politics and International Relations. It can be broadly divided into 4 topics, that is comparative politics, theory of international relations, world political issues, and India and the world. Now, this topic, that is comparative politics and the theory of international relations, draws heavily from part A, paper 1. The topic of comparative politics is quite important because if you look at previous year's questions, a compulsory question has always been asked on this topic. Comparative politics essentially deals, it talks about the development of political systems in developing economies and the various approaches to it. So, comparative politics, you need to understand its definition and why comparative. You need to understand that the comparative method, it's a method. Comparative is method of study. And as political science and international relations, we have said that they are is a part of social science. So, social science methods are not as scientific as of science or pure science. Because in pure science, what you are allowed is experimentation. So, one of the most scientific ways, scientific methods of study in social science is the comparative. Hence the topic of comparative. Namely, there are two main approaches that have been asked alternatively in the examination, that is the political sociology approach and political economy approach. There are quite a few approaches. Once you have understood that, now students, there is a lot of hullabaloo regarding what resources should be referred, and people talk about a very famous book by Dory on this, and they purchase this book and then they get lost. That's what we mean when I said that you need to have a practical approach, is that you need to spend only that much amount of time that is required. Don't spend more time than it is required on a particular topic. So comparative politics is essentially a repetition of political theory with addition of two perspectives. Next is the theory of international relations. Very interesting theory. This theory is quite young because it was developed after World War One. Then next is international relations. Herein, the focus will be on the role of United States of America, and the focus will be on the office of President of the United States. That post World War One, how have they dictated the international relations space? Next, the third topic, that is world political issues. That is world politics. It talks essentially about US domination of world political issues and how most of the foreign policies of other countries is also a derivative of US foreign policy. It also talks about changing world order. That how the geopolitical power has moved from one continent to another. And who has it now? That how it moved from the Dutch to the British, from the British to the Americans, and from the Americans, it is slowly being inched away by China. It talks about a changing world order. Now herein, in paper 2, some of the topics are repetitive and hence a comprehensive approach. You cannot look at certain topics in isolation. You need to have an ability to relate. I'm pretty sure after covering part A of paper 1, you'll begin relating topics in paper 1 and from paper 1 and paper 2. So it requires a comprehensive approach. The topics that are repeated frequently are the topics of globalization. However, recently, questions have been asked regarding the process of reverse globalization. That is, from various countries opening up their borders, have now started closing their borders post the pandemic. That is, we are moving towards an era of protectionism from an era of a liberalized, globalized economy. Yes. The last thing that we want to discuss in this session is the way the question paper is structured in the mains examination. Now, if you look at paper 1, it's of 250 marks. There are total 8 questions which are divided into section A and section B. Out of these 8 questions, you need to answer any 5. Herein, question 1 and question 5 are compulsory. And out of the remaining, 3 are to be attempted, choosing at least 1 from each side. That is, you need to choose 1, or the remaining, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 remaining question. You can choose either from section A or section B. But 1 question apart from the compulsory, you have to choose from section A, and 1 question apart from the compulsory question, you have to choose from section B. The 5th question you can choose either from section A or section B. If you look at the distribution of marks or how this question comes, the compulsory questions have 5 questions A, B, C, D, E. That is question number 1 and question number 5. And each question carries 10 marks. So 5 into 10, 50 marks for this. Now say you have attempted 2 questions from here and a single question from here. So say you have attempted question 2, question 3. So that would again, it would go to 20, 15, 15, 3 questions A, B, C, 3A, 3B, 3C, 20, 15, 15. So in total 150 marks here, then 50 marks here, 200. And then say you have attempted question number 7. Again, it would be structured as question number 7, A, B, and C. the marks would be 20, 15, 50. So this is for paper 1. Similarly for paper 2, again, the paper 2 is of 250 marks. There are total 8 questions divided into 2 sections, section A and section B, of which you have to answer any 5. Question 1 and question 5 are compulsory, and out of the remaining 3 are attempted choosing at least one from each section, and the 5th question then again you can choose from. If you look at the marks breakup, it is similar to paper 1. So this is about political science and international relations. This paper has a huge bearing in general studies. Paper 2, it helps you in essay, and most importantly, political science and international relations has a huge impact in shaping your personality. In the personality interview, in the personal interview round, it helps you immensely, because there are 2 topics that the board members are very interested in. Number 1 is international relations, and number 2, the economic fallout of various policy actions that are taken by the government. And this paper, Political Science and International Relations, helps you to gain the maximum. If you look at the mains examination, out of 1750 marks, the optional carry is 500 marks. Apart from this 500, 250 marks for GS2, 250 marks for essay, and then the personal interview round. So this optional has a huge bearing on the number of marks that are scored both at the prelims and the mains. So that's about today's session. Thank you so much.